In the first scene, Sully, played by Tom Hanks, describes his happy, uncomplicated existence as the chief of the indigenous Pandoran people. He says that both he and his wife, Neytiri, have 5 kids, sons Neteyam and Lo'ak, daughter Tuk, adoptive daughter Kiri, and a human boy named Spider. Jake elaborates, explaining that Kiri is the daughter of Grace, a close friend who died while fighting alongside the Navi against the humans. After the humans lost the war, everyone went back to Earth, but Spider was left behind. Jake said that the kids all get along and look out for each other when playing. Jack says that the youngsters get along like a family despite their diverse skin tones and sizes. Spider, however, is not popular with Neytiri because he is revealed to be the son of Colonel Miles Quaritch, the villain responsible for nearly wiping out the Navis. Since Spider was too little to get on the ship back to Earth, he was forced to remain on Pandora. However, Kiri feels a deep bond with Spider and has grown very fond of him. The human youngster has been raised by the Navi and believes he is one of them. While Neytiri and Jack are having a conversation one night, they both see dazzling spacecraft in the sky. The spacecraft appear out of nowhere and immediately begin wrecking destruction. Torching the Omaticaya environment with flames causes massive devastation and the deaths of numerous animals. Soldiers equipped with robotic artillery emerge from the spacecraft to destroy the last vestiges of the enemy stronghold. From a distance, Neytiri and Jake are surprised to see an RDA spaceship transporting people who want to occupy Pandora and construct a new main operations station. The action then moves to a human research facility, where a Navi clone of the Colonel has been successfully made. He has been given all of the information and recollections that were gathered from him before he passed away. This means the clone of the Colonel has perfect knowledge of everything except the means and motive of his murder. Scientists have created clones of other troops who participated in the initial invasion on Pandora, in addition to the Colonel. That's why the Colonel and his troops are so set on wiping out the Omaticaya, and Jake in particular. Similarly, Jake is leading a Navi army toward the RDA rail supply lines in an effort to cut off the invaders' access to those lines. He sneaks in and gets away with food and ammo. He loses a son in this operation named Lo'ak because he disobeyed orders and was injured. Jake tells him to behave better in the future or face consequences. On the other side, General Ardmore, the Colonel's superior, explains the existence of the Scounds, the Navi's aerial allies. Their helicopters are presently under assault, which has slowed their advance. When the Quaritch heard this, they devised a cunning plan to infiltrate the woodland where the two factions had previously fought in order to learn more about them. He and his friends will soon be entering the jungle. The only problem is that Jake's kids are out there too. As the Colonel surveys the site of their previous combat, he comes across his robotic suit, complete with his own remains still inside. Lo'ak notices everything going on and quickly gets in touch with his father using a voice transmitter he wears around his neck. On hearing this, Jake advises Lo'ak to avoid them and leave the area secretly. Together he and Neytiri take to the air to head into the jungle and make sure their kids are okay. But as Lo'ak and his brothers try to escape, they are caught by the humans. The Colonel examines their fingertips and discovers that they belong to the family of his sworn enemy. It was at that very moment that Neytiri and Jake arrived and began attacking the troops. They rescue most of their kids, but Spider remains captive. Unfortunately, the youngster is kidnapped by some bad humans. After asking Spider his name later, the Colonel immediately recognizes him as his son. Jake approaches his wife again in Omaticaya and advises they leave the town for good, heading east. And now he's terrified that Spider will tell the Colonel and his crew exactly where they are hiding out. Jake also assures Neytiri that the humans will continue fighting the tribe until he joins them, since he was the one who killed Colonel Quaritch. Neytiri doesn't agree with her husband's assessment, but she also doesn't want to leave their stunning house. Because of this, he has no choice but to go to his new country. However, General Ardmore is brutal, trapping Spider in a machine that spins constantly. As much as he tries, he can't get the youngster to provide any crucial information. Spider refuses to give up his unwavering devotion to his Navi parents. Surprisingly, the Colonel is unable to bear the sight of his son in this condition, and so the spinning machine is immediately shut down. He then goes up to the General and informs her that he plans to deal with Spider in his own manner. He and the youngster meet in private later, and he tries to convince the boy that he's not a nasty guy. He tells him that he's brought him back to Earth and that's why he's there. This makes Spider feel good, and he agrees to give him the data he requested. The following scene shows Jake and his family boarding scows and leaving their original land. After several days in the air, they reach the land of Neytiri, home of yet another Navi people. The Navis that make this planet their home are surprisingly pale and aquatic. As soon as they lay eyes on Jake and company, the jokes begin about how ridiculous they look. Tanawari, the tribal chief, and his wife are on their way there now. Skeptical of Jake and his family, he says they lack the aquatic skills necessary for survival. Jake, who is determined to keep his family together, assures them that they will quickly adjust to their new surroundings. Then he says that he's being pursued by people on the ground. Because of this, Tanawari gives in and lets them stay at his house. He also has his kids show Jake's kids how to swim and use their unique animals to go about underwater. As requested, Tanawari's offspring take their new pals to the water and begin teaching them the ropes. Meanwhile, the nefarious Lo'ak loses control while attempting to communicate with a marine creature and is swept away by the tide. The moment they see him, Tanawari's kids get hysterical. Deep in the water, Kiri may be seen as all this is going on. She has surprisingly adjusted well to her new environment, and even has some degree of influence over the marine life. Aonang, Tanawari's son, and his friends approach Kiri the next day as she is meditating underwater and begin making fun of her, calling her a weirdo. This prompts Lo'ak to show up and punch Aonang. When Jake learns of the event later, he becomes enraged and instructs his son to apologize to Aonang as the clan leader's offspring. Lo'ak concedes and apologizes grudgingly. Aonang may forgive him in public, but his feelings for him remain unchanged. So he brings Lo'ak to a prearranged place under the guise of going swimming in order to teach him a lesson. Lo'ak has no idea that there are lethal marine creatures nearby. Soon after, as Lo'ak is out fishing, a massive predator makes a dash straight for him. Lo'ak, frightened and alone, searches around for assistance. However, at that moment, a gigantic beast known only as Pandoran appears to save the day. It uses its broad head to quickly dispatch the predator. Pandoran's true identity as a tulkun, a docile and perceptive species, is revealed. The Neytiri consider the thousands of tulkuns that inhabit the ocean to be ancestors. The power and size of Pandoran surpass all others. While this is going on, Pandoran comes to Lo'ak's aid and brings him up to the surface. In addition, the latter aids the creature by removing the harpoons that were harming it. As a result, the two develop a sweet friendship. When Lo'ak finally makes it to shore, Tanawari summons him. The stern boss has learned of his son's misdeeds and now demands an explanation and an apology from Aonang. But unselfish Lo'ak admits fault and pretends Aonang had nothing to do with it. Now Aonang sees that the new Navis aren't that horrible after all, they only need some time to get used to them. Lo'ak eventually finds his brother and other friends, and they hear the incredible story of how Pandoran saved his life. Those around him don't seem to share his amazement. Instead, they disclose that the other tulkuns have given up on Pandoran since he is a murderer. However, Spider enlightens the Colonel about Navi customs and traditions before accompanying him on a trip to Hallelujah Mountain to pick out a scout. The Colonel has some trouble getting the hang of it at first, but he quickly becomes proficient. Not long later, he too learns of Jake's likely whereabouts and leads his army toward the Neytiri reef. As soon as he arrives, he approaches a group of water Navis and demands to know whether any of them are familiar with Jake. Evil humans murder one Navi and set fire to their homes when they are told nay. But the Navis are sticking to their original declaration. When all other alternatives have been exhausted, the Colonel gives the order to switch to Plan B. Currently, he has the bright idea of massacring tulkuns in the hopes that Jake would notice. However, there is an additional benefit to eliminating them. Tulkuns have an invaluable fluid in their brains that can lengthen their lives. A single liter of this stuff would cost millions of dollars on Earth. Some hunters will soon go out to capture one of the sea monsters. When they do, it knocks out a lot of the trackers within. In a harrowing sight, a mother tulkun is ruthlessly put to death while her children lay by in horror. After some time, the humans leave, leaving the trackers within the tulkuns. After learning that their companions are being slaughtered, the Neytiri decide to take up arms and fight back. Jake tries to calm them down by pointing out that they should tell the tulkuns about the trackers first. The only way to stop a future strike from happening is this. The moment Lo'ak learns this, he rushes out to tell his best buddy, Pandoran. He is joined by the locals Aonang and a few more. They ultimately locate down Payakan and are ready to extract the tracker from him. But at that moment, a whale ship carries the colonel and his hunting party. Lo'ak sees them and immediately contacts his dad to tell him what happened. He and his companions just made it in time to remove the tracker from Payakan's body. As the colonel's team begins searching for them, they dive for cover. While this is happening, Jake finds Tanawari and breaks the news that their kids have gone missing. The second is troubled by this and immediately issues a call for military preparations. Together with the rest of the group, Jake and Neytiri also load up their weapons and prepare to head out to the battlefield. Instead, the colonel gives instructions for an attack on the Tulkuns and the search for Jake's kids. A net is set up, and after some time of searching, Kiri and Tuk are discovered and captured. Despite Lo'ak's best efforts, he is dragged to the whale ship by the net. The colonel will be there shortly to handcuff them to the ship's railing. He removes the transmitter from Lo'ak's collar and begs Jake to give himself up so that his kids would be protected. Jake, realizing he has no other choice, accepts his terms. While everything is going on, Payakan discovers his best friend Lo'ak tied to the deck and decides to free him. He daringly leaps up onto the deck and begins adjusting the ship's enormous fins. This wipes down the ship and wastes a lot of soldiers' time. Using this diversion to their advantage, Jake and the Mikaina begin their own attack on the colonel and his troops. They are motivated by both saving their kids and getting even. At the same time, Spider shatters the whale ship's controls, sending it crashing onto the rocks and filling with water. Next, Jake and Neteyam, his eldest son, rapidly ascend the deck and set Lo'ak, Tuk, and Kiri free. The adults then tell the kids to go back to where it's safe, but Lo'ak won't let them. However, he changes his mind and chooses to help his adoptive brother, Spider. He recruits Neteyam, and the pair eventually comes upon Spider. The colonel spots them as they prepare to abandon ship and fires upon them. Unfortunately, one of the bullets hits Neteyam, badly injuring him. Lo'ak and Spider rush him to the shore to their mom, but he dies from blood loss before they can reach her. Neytiri breaks down in sobs and a piercing scream as she watches her baby perish before her eyes. The villainous colonel, meantime, has used his scout to abduct Kiri and Tuk. After getting in touch with Jake, he finally lets him know that both of his daughters are with him. Hearing this, Jake is able to talk Neytiri down from her ledge and convince her to help him protect their daughters. In response, the latter calls her scout, draws her bow and arrows, and charges the ship in a fit of wrath. Soon after, Jake gets close to the ship and sets it on fire, killing the colonel and his crew. Neytiri also shows up and begins slaughtering the last of the humans with arrows. At the same time as Jake locates and rescues his daughter, Tuk, the colonel has arrived. He has a knife to Kiri's throat. He then uses threats to get Jake to down his weapons, which he does only grudgingly. At the same time, a vindictive Neytiri has taken Spider captive and is threatening to murder him. The colonel claims he has no connection to Spider at first, but after Neytiri cuts the boy's chest, he departs Kiri. Neytiri and her family are getting ready to depart when the colonel says he will go looking for Jake again with the intention of killing him. Years later, Jake decides that the only way to finally be at peace is to get rid of the colonel. As a result, he goes back to fighting. This time, the bitter enemies settle their differences the old-fashioned way, with a fist fight. It's a nasty fight, with both parties giving their all. However, it is our hero, Jake, who ultimately emerges victorious. His arms go around the colonel's neck and he is knocked out. Thinking he is already dead, Jake watches helplessly as he gets submerged. Unfortunately, he experiences similar problems with breathing and begins to sink. Lo'ak, however, rushes to his aid and carries him back to the surface. A little later, Payakan carries the entire clan to safety on the beach. Spider, on the other hand, rescues his biological father by pulling him out of the sea. When the colonel insists that they all go together, Spider rejects down the offer and goes back to his adopted family. Jake's mother, father, and the rest of the Mikaina tribe all participate in the burial of Neteyam's body in sea's depths, where the lighting tubes care for his body as if it were their own. At the film's conclusion, Jake recalls his favorite times with his older son and comes to terms with the fact that he has finally found salvation among their gods.